Okay, ladies and babies, will you please welcome Sabina Higgins.
But it's so lovely, really. This is such a joy every year to have all the breastfeeding mothers. And they all look so happy and healthy and wonderful. And then, of course, having all the great speakers who have been faithfully promoting and helping to get an increase in breastfeeding and that. So they're particularly welcome. So, and it's just wonderful that there is such enthusiasm for breastfeeding from so many mothers. And that it's great that there are so many groups, organisations, agencies, individuals committed to advocating for and supporting breastfeeding. It's a growing recognition that breastfeeding is not just a personal choice, but it's a public health issue that requires collective action and institutional support. The United Nations, the World Health Organization, has long provided clear scientific evidence that the very best start for infant nutrition and the best start for a baby's life is to be breastfed. 6 months exclusive breastfeeding, and then can be weaned onto solids and drinks. And that's scientific work. Nobody but the United Nations, I think, would have done it. And it is there for all, and the evidence increases all the time. And then, of course, people can continue on breastfeeding after the 6 months of the wish, and many parents do now. But that's the essential time for passing on all the immunities, and that the future benefit for the baby. Yeah. It establishes a healthy immune system, prevents infections, and promotes cognitive development, and has many other great benefits. They're increasing all the time, the benefits, in fact, they're discovering that. So despite this awareness and the tireless work of so many advocates, Ireland still lags behind in breastfeeding rates by international standards. In many countries, the rates of breastfeeding exceed 80%, or in some cases 90%, while the HSE Action Plan 2016 to 2023 report outlines some recent progress in the past decade. We still hold the unfortunate distinction of being one of the lowest breastfeeding rates in Europe and indeed in the world. Amazing. I would say there's a failure in our culture and in our society to adequately support mothers and their babies. This should be addressed as a matter of urgency and as of great importance. It suggests that the mothers wishing to breastfeed are not getting the support she needs in preparing for breastfeeding and for baby latching on successfully. Mothers can be discouraged and give up if they are not prepared and know what to expect. For instance, preparing the nipples and knowing about the growth spurts, like at 3 weeks, 6 weeks, 6 months, when baby needs to feed maybe all day in order to increase the supply of milk that it needs for its growth. Too many mothers in our country are missing out on the opportunity to provide their babies with the best possible start in life, an opportunity that research and evidence shows is not only beneficial but crucial for the health of both the mother and the child. But why are we as a nation so far behind? Why, when we know that breastfeeding offers undeniable benefits for both short-term and long-term health, do we see so few mothers continuing with breastfeeding beyond the first weeks or months? What are the barriers and what needs to be done urgently? The evidence suggests that the main barrier is that there are not enough midwives available to adequately meet the needs to support mothers and protect breastfeeding. In some of the surveys done by Bonnie Bath and others, that is what came out. There was not enough midwives, and they were so hurried they had not the time to give. I think it's a matter of priority that there should be as many midwives as are required to give continuity of care to the mother right through the continuum of pregnancy and birth, for ensuring that in hospital mothers are supported with breastfeeding until Latching On is firmly established, and that supports continue at home by the community midwives until success in Latching On is assured. To increase breastfeeding rates and to change attitudes to breastfeeding, there needs to be enough healthcare providers sufficiently trained and competent in their attitude and knowledge to breastfeeding and lactation. To increase breastfeeding rates and to change attitudes to breastfeeding, I've said that there must be enough healthcare providers sufficiently trained and competent to the knowledge of breastfeeding and lactation. And the GPs who have kind of moved out of this for a long time, they are essential as well. The role of the GP, the obstetrician, the midwife and the nurse are all essential in supporting, protecting and advocating for breastfeeding. I think that all medical personnel, GPs, obstetricians and nurses that the mother meets during her pregnancy should have knowledge of breastfeeding and lactation as part of their training at undergraduate, graduate and at postgraduate level. Humanity. Our ancestors go back through the multitude of generations were culturally familiar and gratefully accepting of breastfeeding. Let us bring back the normalization and familiarity of breastfeeding. In this regard, I believe it would all help if all society were culturally familiar and accepting of breastfeeding, and if it were part of the school curriculum, because so many young mothers haven't seen somebody being breastfed, and so many children have not seen somebody being breastfed. So I'm hoping that sometime our wonderful volunteer groups will volunteer to go into schools, a few of them, and show children what it's like to be being breastfed. I think that would be wonderful. It's particularly at second level. Of course, it would help with fostering cultural familiarity if breastkeeping in public spaces were facilitated and women felt free and welcome to feed their children in public, and if mothers decided to act in the public good by breastfeeding in public and maybe with themselves or with other mothers. So I think that would be a great move for initiative. The powerful influence of the infant formula industry cannot be ignored. According to UNICEF and to the World Health Organization, the global formula milk industry is valued at 55 billion. This industry uses systematic, inequitable and often unethical marketing strategies to promote formula feeding over breastfeeding. In many cases, mothers are besieged with advertisements on products that in reality promote a message that is contrary to breastfeeding and its value. The International Code of Marketing of Breast Milk Substitute, known as the Code, published by the World Health Organization in 1981, is an international health policy framework to regulate the marketing of breast milk substitutes in order to protect breastfeeding. While bans are currently in place on all marketing of breast milk substitutes in many countries, I mean, that is an eye-opener, isn't it? They're actually banned because of the harmful influence they have. Ireland has still not fully implemented this internationally agreed code. Here, the daily advertisements suggest that follow-on formula is the way to go, whereas actually there is no need for follow-on formula. If a mother breastfeeds exclusively for 6 months and she can then wean onto solids and drinks, there is actually no need for formula, follow-on formula. And that message is not across. It suggests that that's the way you have to do it, that's the way it's done, but it needn't be. And many mothers are proving that that's not the way by their weaning and using drinks as their way. I suggest it would be a highly desirable move to see the Health Service Executive take a more active role in promoting breastfeeding. Imagine if instead of the daily advertisements, we see for formula feed from largely unaccountable operations. We had regular evidence-based campaigns funded by the HSE promoting breastfeeding as the norm. Imagine if we saw breastfeeding portrayed as the default choice, supported by healthcare providers and celebrated by society. That on our television screens, I think, would make a big, big difference. Maybe we could have representatives from all the relevant stakeholder groups to come together to prepare a plan and lobby the government to allocate enough funding to this most important endeavour. This would have such a great benefit to society as a whole and could save billions in health expenditure over time. Now, and today we're here, you're the pioneers, the convinced, the dedicated. So whether you're a healthcare professional or policy advocate, it's your work, our advocacy and our influence within our communities. Each of us here today has a role to play in shaping the future health and well-being of our society. So we can continue the pioneering work together. We can make Ireland a place where breastfeeding is celebrated, supported and seen for what it truly is, the very best start in life for children. And I hope in your time you will see it, that we will be at the 80 and 90%. Hello, Dada. Thank you. Thank you. Isn't that lovely?